it meant a lot to me, and we were able to get to know you better, work with your son, and work with your company, and invest with you guys. So it was a really special moment for me, and I still remember it. I'm glad you do too.
Yeah,
so I'm so happy you're here. And Phil Huber, you are also a pretty good guy. So
I'm no Jim O'Shaughnessy, but I tried.
well, I know that you guys know each other, and I was so glad we could do the show, all four of us together. And you have a book out, and you sold your business, and Jim just sold his business. So the first thing I want to talk about before we get to your book is, what is it like? Not that you're working for anyone, but you're technically kind of working for somebody, or?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So let's start with you. What is it like going from an entrepreneurial situation to, I don't want to say having a boss, but like now there's a layer above you that you're kind of reporting to and letting them know what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting is I wasn't the entrepreneur that started Huber Financial. That was my dad.
Right.
But I spent the vast majority of my career there. So, I felt very much involved in the growth and development of the business. But no,
You guys are a wealth management firm based primarily originally out of Illinois,
yeah, primarily in Illinois.
but
So
now you're a much bigger organization.
yeah, we're growing our footprint. We have, I think, around 20 office locations in 7 states now. We've had a few acquisitions this year. That
What's
we've
called Savant?
Savant Wealth Management
Okay.
is our firm. I'm the CIO for the company, and yeah, we're predominantly Midwest based, but we've got locations out west a little bit, McLean, Virginia. So we're kind of scattered all over, but predominantly in the Midwest.
You guys are doing deals. You guys are buying.
Yeah, we're doing deals. We've just announced our 3rd acquisition of the year. A group out of Madison, Wisconsin, called Phil Brandt Wealth Management. They specialize in university professors. That's kind of their niche. We had 2 other acquisitions earlier this year, one in Indiana, one in Michigan. And then we actually ourselves took some private equity money this year, a strategic minority investor.
You got to get dad out, and then you got right. Everyone's got to like slowly be bought out. That's the idea.
No, I mean, obviously, you guys see the activity on a day-to-day basis. In our
Yeah.
space. Every single day. I mean,
Citywide.
I haven't checked to see who's
Michael is raising
bought
private
today.
equity money to buy me out. So
Every single
it's all
That's why
happening.
you keep calling.
Yeah. Okay. Got to get this guy out of here. All right, we got to talk about your incredible deal. You've built this phenomenal asset management firm, and then Patrick came along, a phenom. He added to that this whole thing with content and this whole way of reaching allocators, advisors. I mean, did an unbelievable job with it. And then you guys are basically in this situation where you're pioneering into a new way to allocate with Canvas.
Yeah.
And it's an overnight sensation. And then tell us what happens from there.
So step back, something I've always wanted to do. I founded a company called Netfolio in 1999, which was going to do this.
I remember that. Yeah.
The difference is this time the technology actually works.
Trading costs are zero.
Trading costs
doesn't
are
hurt.
zero.
Okay.
But you can't minimize. We have been building this technology for ourselves for like more than 10 years. I was dissatisfied with every off-the-shelf solution we had. And so I said to my tech guys, I want it all replaced.
Yeah.
And so that took about 10 years. And we're not talking about trivial things. Like, so for example, you guys, one of our great clients, thank you. You guys gave us feedback and we took you seriously.
Yeah.
And, that's because both Patrick and I believe you push the solution or the thing you want to work on to the people who are actually using it.
Yes.
Right? Because what do we know? We're asset managers. We don't really often meet with the end client. You guys, that's where you guys are the absolute geniuses. So we had the base technology, which led the famous story, of course. Patrick walked into my office and goes, Dad? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, remember Netfolio? And I'm like, yeah.
Right.
And he goes, well, we have built all this technology. And the fact is, we built the Death Star to kill a mouse.
Right.
And my eyes widened and I'm like, you want to? And then he stopped me and he goes, we are gonna AWS this bitch.
Right.
And the
Death
rest,
Star, a planet.
yeah. And the rest was kind of history. I honestly and truly believe, and have for a very long time, that custom customized portfolios are the future. It's going to be its own
You know
category.
what's funny about that? They were the past.
You're so perceptive because there's a book by Peter Drucker, which I recommend everyone, Adventures of a Bystander.
Yeah.
And one of the chapters is when he worked for a merchant bank in London in the 30s, right? The thing that I found really interesting about it was that's exactly how they managed money. It was to the family, to their specifications.
Yeah.
Everyone was different. And I instantly got that book out again, and I'm like, you know what? This is something that only the super, super rich could afford long, long ago. And you can see the direction that this is going.
Yeah, because what ends up happening is like all the Wall Street firms start getting bought by banks and they start scaling, getting bigger. And what always happens is they just look like, where can we cut costs? Oh, here's a good place. Why are we doing custom bespoke portfolios for people with $1 million? Like,
Right.
why would we do that? That's stupid. Let's put them in life cycle fund. But it's similar to TV. It's like, so everything gets bundled and then the unbundling is inevitable.
Right.
And now we have 18 apps that we're watching shows on versus one cable subscription, but probably paying roughly the same thing. So you guys are basically unpackaging something that used to exist and then got packaged.
Yeah.
So now a financial advisor can custom tailor a portfolio to a client. And you guys built Canvas, which is the engine that allows that to happen.
Yep.
Are you guys doing custom?
Yeah,
edits?
we use Canvas too. We were
Yeah,
one
they're
of
a
the,
client
we
as
were
well.
one of the initial
Yep.
partner firms, just like you guys, and it's been a phenomenal.
I think we signed the day before you, though.
I don't know about that. But no, it's been wonderful to work with that.
I think that's
whole
right.
team.
I'm gonna ask Claudette. All right. So you built this amazing thing, and it looked like you got a really nice head start. And now what?
So, honestly, all joking aside,
You wanted the plane.
when Patrick and I were talking about it, we both realized that the set of companies that we would be willing to sell ourselves to was tiny. So,
Because he's gonna because Patrick's gonna live with the consequences of
Right,
that.
exactly.
That's right. And you are too, but to a lesser extent.
Right. Yeah.
okay.
Exactly. And so when we got first approached by Franklin Templeton, it turns out there was one guy there who was, very clear visioned about the way the world is working.
Roger?
Roger. Yeah.
Okay, we talked to him.
Okay, so he had built Morgan Stanley's entire separately managed account platform. He knew how to do things, et cetera. But after our first Zoom call, Patrick and I chatted about it, and what I said was, listen, what I'm still kind of not believing is that we just talked to one of the biggest asset managers in the world with $1.5 trillion in assets under management.
This is Franklin Templeton.
Yeah. And they have the vision to come forward with something that is clearly a risk. It's not a standard, right? And that kind of mentality is a very rare thing in a large company, and that's why large companies die.
Because why? Because all he has to do really is just keep things status quo, and he keeps his job for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
He introduces something like this, and it doesn't work, or whatever,
Yep.
cost overruns or
Yep.
delays, and then he's at risk.
Exactly.
So okay, so I totally get that.
So Roger was the guy who got it, but I'm going to give props to their entire senior team. Talk to them all.
Let's do that. Let's do that. Congrats to the senior team.
Oh, we got sound effects. Where's my horn?
No,
I
you
used
don't
to
get a
like,
horn.
Groucho Marx. Anyway, we finally met, and this is what's kind of weird, right? We got the deal all done over Zoom, and
It's amazing. Do you ever think in a million years you would sell the business you spent a lifetime building over a Zoom call? Well, there was no Zoom like 3 years ago.
Right. Yeah. But we met for the first time a week and a half ago, and the chemistry was fantastic.
That's great.
Great. These are
Well done.
really.
So can I tell you something? I think they should take the Ben Franklin avatar from the logo and put you in there. It's like a giant smile on your face. What do you think about that?
No.
Well, now they have this all right, so now they have this cutting edge technology, and maybe they should like judge the brand a little bit, like the parent company. Like let's be like tech first now. Like,
Yeah.
the kids aren't into Ben Franklin.
No.
They need like a Kardashian or something.
Right. That's true. And in addition to that, he's in black and white, right?
Yeah.
So give him some shades. You know,
Throw
make
some-
him
throw
a
some sunglasses on.
non-fungible token.
You remember
Give
the
him a board
Simpsons?
ape.
Remember the Simpsons episode with Poochie,
Yes.
the dog?
Yeah.
Like I forget what they need him for, but he shows up with a skateboard.
Yeah.
And Homer does the voice for him. All right, so they need a skateboarding dog. Any truth to the rumor that potentially Patrick could be potentially in the plans long term as like senior leadership?
So still too early for
Of
that?
course.
Yeah. Listen. Who
knows?
Patrick is a phenomenon. And
Agreed.
And he if they use him right, he will move mountains for
Yeah.
them. And he will be able to help them become the absolute leader in that category.
Selfishly, though, I almost don't want that because then how's he doing all these podcasts?
Well, so, you know, one of the things.
and I listen to like probably one out of every three.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to keep up.
It is.
But every single one I listen to, I share it with people immediately. It's
Same
always
with me.
so good.
Same
Yeah.
with me.
So
And
sorry, let me cut in. Our fates are intertwined a little bit
What
because,
happened to your voice?
dude, don't ask.
I just did.
Don't worry about it.
All right.
What's wrong with his voice?
I'm trying something new.
Okay.
Wait. What?
wait a minute. We got
Smoking a
Elizabeth
pipe?
Holmes going on over here?
So
This is Michael Batnick.
I would not have a sore throat because of a podcast without Patrick's nudge. Patrick told me to start a podcast in 2017, and I took his advice, and that was game
Oh, you
changer.
have podcast throat.
I have podcast
So you get
throat.
royalties?
But my O'Shaughnessy origin story, and I wrote about this a few weeks ago, was in 2012 at one of Barry's big picture conferences. And across the board, everybody there scared the shit out of me. And there were a few British gentlemen who were telling like stories about Roman times and whatever. And I was like, holy shit, I need to sell everything and go short everything. And you were the only person on stage telling, I don't know if you were telling
I
people
remember
to
that.
buy.
Do you remember
But
that?
you were
I do.
saying stocks. I don't think you said they've never been this cheap, but you said stocks are cheap. And you went on for an hour and you didn't win I went with the Bears over you like an idiot. But that was my introduction to you.
That's very cool. So I almost never forecast because what the f do I know, right? So the only time.
You know a lot.
Okay,
but-
fair enough. But my point is, most forecasts are bullshit, and people make them because people want them.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Yeah.
And I've written maybe 4 in my entire life, and I only write them when the numbers are screaming at me. Hey,
That's your
idiot.
margin of safety.
99?
Kinda like today.
99?
Kinda like
Yep,
today.
99. I
99.
wrote The Internet Contrarian. But remember, human OS, just like everyone else. So after writing a really bearish thing called The Internet Contrarian.
You bought
more.
Amazon.
You bought more.
No, I started an internet company, Netfolio.
Well, if you can't beat them, join them.
Exactly. But so the numbers were screaming. And so I published a piece in March of 2009 called A Generational Buying Opportunity.
Damn.
It's
Good
still
timing.
kicking around on the web.
Wait, that was the timing on that?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
So you have 2 posts that aged like a fine wine.
Well, hopefully more, but
Yeah, they worked out.
Well, most
They-
people have 0.
Well, again, like so, what people have a hard time understanding is I'm just listening to the numbers, right? So what we did was I said, okay, the 10 years ending February 09 are the second worst 10-year period real rate of return, so inflation adjusted for the S&P 500 or its proxy, which most people don't know. The S&P 500 has not been around in that form for very long time period. But anyway, going back to 1900, okay? Second worst. First was May of 1920. And, you know, I think they had some kind of flu thing going
yeah.
around.
just a world war that they had to close the market for.
Yeah, and a world war.
Right.
And then that whole Spanish flu thing. Anyway, so I said to the guys, okay, show me the 50 worst, and then show me what happens 1, 3, 7, 10 years later.
Yeah.
When you get to 3 years, no negative numbers.
Yeah. And some of that data really predates the Fed having the influence that it does today. And in 09, they were basically telling us the same thing they told us last year, which is that we ain't going to stop.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
they said it
Yeah.
like many times.
Yeah, no, I know. And, you know, so it was kind of like you really don't get this kind of market very often.
Right.
And so I followed my own advice. I liquidated more or I guess I would say slightly less risky assets than equities.
You stop reinvesting your dividends.
Savage. All right, let's
Very
Jim,
savage.
you're talking about forecasts are bullshit, and of course they are. Let's start chart number 22. What we're looking at is the Global Fund Manager Survey of the biggest tail risk. And if we look at this chart, which Big John will throw up in a second, it's got going
is
back
awesome.
to
This is
2011,
awesome. Oh, wow,
what
look at
people
that.
consider to be fund managers from Bank of America, what fund managers consider to be the biggest risks.
Can we, So for the people that are just listening and not watching, they go back to 2011. It starts with EU sovereign debt funding. And that looks like it went on for like 3 years where that was considered the biggest risk consistently.
Yeah.
And then U.S. fiscal cliff. I don't know if anybody remembers that. It was kind of a blip, but we had a debt ceiling fight. Then it went
China
into
hard
China
landing. I
China
remember
hard
that.
landing. I remember
They had
specifically.
a few
do too.
repeats on
Yeah.
there.
Which one? China
Yeah.
hard landing. It's like every
Yeah.
2 years,
That's
right?
Like that's like a greatest hits.
Yeah.
Geopolitical crisis. What was that about? 2015.
They're just making
Russia
shit up.
invaded
Oh,
Ukraine.
Crimea.
No,
yeah.
Crimea.
2015 would have been probably Greece saying, you know all that money you loaned us?
Yeah.
We don't have it. We can't pay
Oh,
you back.
Cyprus. Yeah.
Another China hard landing. Which how did the second one hit for you?
I prefer the
You've had
original.
better.
Yeah.
You've had a better hard landing. Quantitative tightening. So this is Jerome Powell,
Raising
quote unquote,
rates.
going too far,
Right.
and the trade war happening at the same time. And actually,
But by the way, you know what's funny? Look inside. Look to the left. All of these are labeled.
Yeah.
Chinese credit tightening. Who the fuck was worried about that? Seriously?
Well, obviously,
I'm
the,
still worried about that.
analysts at Bank of America
you
were
could always
worried.
find these headlines.
Have
like
you ever met one of those guys? They're
No.
very shaky in general.
You could always find like people worried about
So
this stuff.
Well,
Always.
the best
Yeah.
is like coronavirus is a good example. Like, look when that starts.
Yeah.
It starts after it already happened. So
course.
no one was talking about it as a tail
listen,
it
risk.
started
Okay.
in May. You're
so,
right.
So
Right.
that's
Yeah.
another one of my precepts, right? Story follows price.
Every time.
Not the other way
So
around.
look how they say instead of writing Trump, they say political populism for 2016 and 17.
It was all trade war in 20. But the point is, right now, it's inflation / bond tantrum. And if you go on down the list, were any of these things a reason to sell?
Did the S&P go up or down over that full time frame?
so
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah, so inflation
Since this
Real-
chart started, the
Yeah.
the Nasdaq is up
1,000.
1,500%,
Right.
25% a year
Right.
compound.
right, it's amazing, right?
It's never anything that we're worried about.
Yeah. But see, the thing is, like in that piece that I told you about the generational buying opportunity, I'm like, I will never short the United States of America, right? I know Animal House, and we will not sit here and listen to you badmouth this country. But the point is, it's true. Like, so yeah, we're going through a bunch of shitty things with people.
What else is new?
Exactly.
Well,
we
can I
always
ask you-
did.
can
We
I-
always
Can you
Can
short
I-
the Constitution
Can I
now
ask
that
you a
Michael
question,
owns it?
Don't you dare.
As somebody who was around for this, because I read books, Phil, Michael, we read books, but you were
Leather-bound books.
You were around for this. The shitty things that we're going through,
Yeah.
I understand that we're always kind of going through shitty things, but like it really feels like the stock market is completely divorced from like all of the shitty stuff that's going on societally in a way that in the 70s it was not immune to Watergate. We just had 2 fucking impeachments
Yeah.
of the same guy. The stock market rallied.
Yeah.
So why do I feel like it's so different? I mean, I know it was if you look at the bear market of the 70s, it was like a double dip.
Yeah.
It was so disgusting.
Yeah.
And I know that wasn't caused by Watergate, but you can clearly see that Nixon being impeached and then resigning did make things worse for
Big deal.
stocks.
It was a big deal.
Okay. So do stocks no longer give a shit about anything that takes place at that level of politics? Is it just a show?
That's funny. I was just talking about this earlier today. I'm doing a series called The Great Reshuffle. We are living through a really fascinating period in history when all of the old institutions are
This
essentially
is on the podcast, right?
Yeah.
All right, so let's plug that real quick. Jim's podcast, Infinite Loops, which I was a guest on
Yes.
when we were selling our book.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun.
Yep.
All right,
He
go.
was too.
Hey, where was my invite? Oh, yeah,
I have not been a guest on there yet. Wink,
there
wink.
you go.
Let's see how you do today. kid.
Yeah, this is a
my
trial for
tryout.
you. But the point is, so the Great Reshuffle, which means that we are living through an era, which similar eras have happened in the past, but not to the degree with the technology that we have, right? So with the technology right now, time, space, geography all collapsed. They're gone. They don't matter anymore. So
Trading 24/7.
trading 24/7. I can hire my guy who works for me, Vatsil, on the podcast. He's in India, super smart. Twitter was his resume. And so what is happening concurrently with that is you are seeing the old gatekeepers like government, like journalists, like, you name it, publishers even, crumbling.
Yeah.
And they're crumbling because
people are running.
they're way ahead.
Circles around.
And as a matter of fact, Josh, one of my worries actually, and I'm being very serious about this, is I really don't know how, and let's keep it U.S. centric. I really don't know how our government is going to catch up to where we are, where the private sector is.
Can I say that I've been thinking about that too? I spoke with Rep. Patrick McHenry, who is pro Bitcoin, pro crypto, and that's kind of the point that he was making, is that we're not smart enough to come up with new regulations for things that are going to be invented tomorrow morning in advance.
Yep.
So we either let these people into the building to tell us what's going on, or we threaten them. But one version is better than the other.
No doubt.
Well, but so what do you say to this idea though, that the obscene amounts of money being made by technology people and crypto people will ultimately lead to the election of candidates who will be shepherded toward the right solutions, and that's going to be the thing that answers your question?
No way. We're so far away.
Well, they're
from
buying
that.
stadiums. It's only a matter of time before they're buying senators.
This group of people.
I mean,
it's such a small.
Hang
on.
On that note, I used to joke that one of my proposals was that all of the Congress critters should have to be like Formula One and wear the lobbyists who bought them.
Yes.
Like patches on the
right.
Well, so the Lakers are going to play in
Crypto.com stadium.
That's such a silly sounding.
That is also
Rolls
a
right off the tongue.
classic top signal, and I'm going to have to
we're either gonna
reproduce
laugh
that.
at it.
There are no more top
in 3
signals,
years.
Jim. They don't exist, and blockchains are the new staples, so it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I think what I'm trying to figure out is, does Elon Musk just decide, you know what, I'm going to put 10 senators in that building, and who could possibly go up against me with the capital that I have, or is money not going to be enough to do something like that?
Bernie Sanders.
So
Chamath is involved in politics. These guys have more money than God.
Yeah. So listen, one of the maxims that usually works out really well is follow the money, man. And
he who has the gold makes the rules. So maybe that's the answer. How does politics catch up?
Buy gold.
Because the politicians are funded by these new technologies and the
Potentially.
creators.
Can we also just say, sorry, to go back to this chart, it says biggest tail risk. How is inflation tail risk? Tail risk is like an
Is it
alien
still
invasion.
a tail risk if everyone's talking about it?
How is that alien invasion?
No, of course
it's
it's
not.
That's a tail risk.
I do love, though, that your voice has transformed into Funkhauser from
It has. It really has.
from Curb
You know
Your
what?
Enthusiasm.
I wasn't even going to go there, but I'm thinking, I'm seeing Larry David
It's so
in my
funny
head.
you say that. I thought I sounded like Jeff Garland, but you're right. I'm funky. I'm the funk man.
Funkhauser.
You're the funk man,
I'm the
man.
funk man.
Yeah,
This is the funk
R-
man.
Rest his soul. Rest his
This
soul.
is
yeah.
awesome. I should keep this.
All right, so the tail risk thing, it's not a tail risk if you're reading an article about it every day.
Right.
Is that
No.
okay? So I think people really don't understand that or have trouble with that. So what is the tail risk? I wrote down mine. I think it's either mortgages or China invading
No,
Taiwan.
I think
That's a pretty good one.
Well,
actually.
China.
China invading Taiwan.
Well, I mean, I'm not like I'm not
We
like
know,
a
we know.
geopolitical expert, but I'm just thinking from a Wall Street perspective, how critical that part of the world is for all the supply chain. We
It
just learned
very
this.
much is, yeah.
So what happens if all of a sudden, forget about ships not being able to get into LA, how about nothing moving anywhere through the Pacific, because there's like the potential for a showdown that obviously nobody is rooting for.
Have you heard of the blockchain?
Come on, seriously.
I-
That's to me that this is the this
What-
is the
what
thing.
about-
I'm personally
What's your risk?
I'm personally worried about illiquidity in the Bored Ape market.
All right, you guys are fucking.
Wait, I got one. No, seriously. What if?
I wanted to answer
Phil.
your question seriously, Josh.
Jim, I
just
want
so
to hear
you
it.
know.
I want to hear it. These guys are fist pounding.
So listen.
I asked it sincerely.
What it potentially causes is a very sharp decline that happens very quickly until we build around solutions, right? And some of those solutions are being built right now. We are reshoring some of this manufacturing capability,
Right.
specifically in the chips sector, because our economy essentially does not work without
Taiwan
chips.
Semi is one of the 10 largest market cap stocks in the world, I think, right now.
And they should
Is it
be.
really?
I am so bullish on the next decade. The stuff, all of the shit that, like, there is a silver lining to this.
Yeah.
All of the business formation that we're seeing in 2021 and 2020, we're like the next $1 trillion companies.
But that's
were all
the idea.
founded
But
last
that's
year.
the idea of tail risk. We're not saying it's the central risk. What we're saying is this is some weird shit at
No,
one of the
I
tails.
was saying I'm so bullshit. I don't want to talk about tail risk, but fine. Here's my tail risk event. What if this all the smoke around Tether ends up being real, and that crashes Bitcoin, and that just happens to be the spark that we need to turn sentiment south in the broader markets?
Listen, you know, there's a lot of Tinder and there's a lot of matches.
Right, exactly.
And
One just
without
needs
a
the
doubt.
light.
yeah, I mean, so the way we look at it, just like I said before, like my time horizon is infinite. I have children and grandchildren and charities I want to give money to. So I learned that from my first client, who was a 73-year-old gold prospector who sold his company to Barrick Gold in Canada. I went to his ranch here in Montana or Wyoming, sorry. And
Same thing.
it's just super. Yeah,
Is this John
it is.
Sutton you're talking about?
And no. And anyway, so I'm like selling him, or I'm showing him the most conservative stuff we've got. And he's like, no. Show me that small to mid cap growth, which was pure momentum, by the way.
Yeah.
And I'm like, David, I don't really think that might be appropriate for you, you know, given the time horizon. He points at the picture on his table of his grandkids
for
and
them.
his kids.
Yeah.
And he goes, my time horizon's infinite. And ever since he said that to me, it really changed the way I think about things. Because mine is too now. And
Right.
so like, I don't really worry too much about tail risk. Look, human operating system, I know, is going to operate the same way. People are going to fuck up. They're going to sell really near the low. You guys are going to do your absolute best to convince them not to do that. And you will be incredibly convincing, but it might not be enough, depending on how
Well, not for
steep-
everyone.
Or not for
Yeah,
everyone.
2020 was interesting because we came out of it pretty well for our
Yeah.
clients in terms of making sure they got through it. But it ended so quickly.
That's
did.
the thing. It's not the depth of the sell-off.
It's the length.
You can't have like that kind of pessimism and fear set in the course of a month. You need like this series of
Right.
lower highs that
Great.
just breaks
That
your
is-
heart every time.
That
There
is
was,
an
we didn't even,
incredible-
there wasn't
You
even
haven't
one.
had that,
we didn't have
though.
one.
Yeah.
There wasn't even one
No.
rollover.
Let's do this
Okay.
investing, trading, and collectibles. What NFT are you recommending?
Can I
to
tell
clients
you,
currently,
as I'm
Jen?
sitting here, I just got an offer for 0.05 ETH on my OpenSea NFT. I don't want to tell you what it is. I'm insulted by that offer.
What do you mean?
0.05. I listed it for 0.12.
Do this back to him.
Right? I wish
Just
I could.
Fuck
You
you,
went full
buddy.
funk houser right there.
0.05 ETH is $2,500.
I don't even know.
Is $1,000?
No.
What is it,
0.05
dude?
ETH is, I don't know, what is that,
Oh,
100
not
bucks?
0.5, 0.05.
Yeah.
0.05.
Oh, I'm
we're down
offended.
in.
I'm offended.
I'm offended.
He's in 5 basis point land. Ooh,
Yeah, get outta
what a
here.
burn! That's
Get
a sick
outta
burn
here.
on you.
Are you doing NFTs?
No, I every time I see how much like work goes involved into actually doing it and all the steps,
You just want somebody to buy it for you and give
I
them
would
the
love
cash?
to. I'll pay Michael $20 to do it for me. I'm too lazy to do
Buy
it.
him like a wrestling.
So Ben and I are going to
NFT.
talk about
He
it
would
next week.
love the wrestling.
Speaking
What are they
of
doing?
which, so the
What are they
reason I
doing?
wanted to talk about collectibles, you wrote a post not too long ago called "I Collect Cash Flows," where
Yeah.
you kind of you talked about you want to own cash
I
flow
like that one, by
businesses,
the way. That was
and
good.
not
Loser.
NFTs or trading
Yeah, I'm
cards
such an idiot.
or whatchamacallit.
Right.
So I wanted to use this opportunity to share a gift that I brought for all three of you guys today.
Okay.
I-
Oh man, you're so
listened
cool.
to an
I feel like an
episode that-
asshole. I didn't bring anything.
Well, I listened
out,
to an
Jim, get out.
episode a little while ago that Tom Lydon was on. He brought you guys some nice gifts, and I thought, you know what, I should do something like that, but not nearly as impressive as his gift. So
damn
I
it.
do collect things.
Look what I brought
That's
for
a
you.
big buildup. How,
You mentioned your mother-in-law who collects elephant figurines, I think.
Yeah.
And because she likes to put them on a shelf and she
That's
likes
right.
looking at them. I have something like that. It's action figures, wrestling action
Okay.
figures.
Tatanka?
Those might be
So
worth some
I
money,
brought
though.
each of you your own wrestling action figure.
Come on.
Wow.
And each one is curated to your personality.
Wait,
so
let me-
Hey,
hold on,
so
let's go,
Phil,
let's go.
I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna send you a gift.
All right, I'm
with
raising
that guy who
Ramon.
says, "I got you this gift."
Josh is
All right,
Yokozuna.
so we're gonna start things off here with.
Okay.
You're
This is
serious.
amazing.
Look at this. He's serious.
So we're gonna start with
I
Josh.
used to have all of these as a kid.
Josh gets John Cena.
I had
Okay.
I had the
let
GI
me,
Joes.
let me walk through the reasons I got each of these. So
Okay.
John Cena's catchphrase is "You can't see me." Josh quit Twitter, and now we can't see him. John Cena is also super into hip hop, and he's probably the most mainstream wrestler that even non-fans recognize. Similarly, in our world, like my mom knows who you are. She has no idea who Michael is. No offense, Michael.
His mom doesn't know who he is.
So that's what Josh gets.
This is- dude,
and feel free to give this to your son.
This is
obviously.
awesome, and I love it. Says height 6'1", weight 250, which are actually my measurements, but we don't look alike at all. So, dude, this is amazing.
So
thank you, Phil.
now we're gonna go to Jim. Jim, you get Dusty Rhodes.
Dusty
That's
Rhodes.
cool.
If you're
From
familiar with
old-
Dusty Rhodes, his nickname was the American Dream, and honestly, Jim, I look at you as the embodiment of the American Dream.
Oh, well, thank you.
The
man.
other
That's
key
very
point
nice.
is that Dusty Rhodes, who's since passed, his son Cody is one of the top wrestlers out there today, similar to your son Patrick being just an
cool.
absolute phenom as well. So I thought that was a perfect fit for you.
that's
Thank you, man.
awesome.
I'm actually honored and
You can give it
touched.
to your
Thank
grandson.
you.
Don't
I
worry.
will. Pierce, my grandson, is going to look at this and say, "Papa, you are fucking cool, man."
Pierce can't wait to eat and swallow one of the pieces of that action figure.
He's 7, man.
And then last but not least, we got Michael. I got you Goldberg.
Oh, that
And
there you go.
the reason being
so Jewish.
another phallically challenged Jewish man. and partially your blog name is the Irrelevant Investor, but the irony is that you're far from irrelevant. Similarly,
look at
Goldberg, his heyday was the late
Look at this
90s.
guy.
So you would think he's irrelevant, but he actually still shows up now today. So he's actually relevant despite most people thinking he's not. So
I love it. What was his finishing with the jackknife?
the jackhammer, which is
Jackhammer.
again kind of like you.
Thing with Goldberg that's so crazy is, what are these muscles called?
Traps.
Deltoids.
I think. Wait, is that
The
traps?
Deltoids, right?
The deltoids and the traps were just so out of control.
I almost gave you Goldberg because your traps kind of reminded me.
My
of
traps are
his,
pretty
so,
big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My traps are out of control. Not to brag.
Who's your favorite wrestler?
All time, Shawn Michaels.
Why?
Currently, he was a
'Cause he's a
smaller
sexy
guy,
boy.
and he's a sexy
sexy.
boy. Obviously, that's
Yeah.
number one. But
I figured that,
like
but I didn't
smaller
want-
guy, more
I
athletic.
wanted to get you to say it.
Current day, Daniel Bryan would probably be mine.
What's his deal? What does he do?
He does, yes.
He's a small guy. He's the yes chant.
He's like the yes guy.
Just
Oh,
the ultimate
is that
ultimate
the guy in the
underdog.
GIF?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
he's a good
yes.
guy.
That's him,
Oh
yeah.
my God, Jim.
There
knows
you
the
go.
gift.
He knows every gift.
I went to one of those with my kid.
Did you have a great time?
I went to the Barclays in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And we were on the floor, no seats. And my kid's a tiny, so I got to hold him up.
Oh, man.
Like I'm holding a sign. I have to hold him up for 3 hours.
Oy.
These things never end, by the way. You know
They're-
that, right?
they are long,
This
yeah.
thing went from like 7 to 10:30, and I'm holding a 40-pound child almost the entire time because otherwise he won't see a thing. I don't know why we were on
This
the
must
floor.
have been a few years ago then.
Yeah.
You
And
got a lot of karma points for that.
the
though,
one
man.
thing that I would say though, I was with another dad and his kid was lighter. I think we switched at one point. But the one thing I will say is I have never been to an event before, barring maybe a Knicks playoff game. I have never seen that much enthusiasm for anything. And like I've seen every concert, I've seen every type of sport in every venue. These people, your
Yeah.
people,
When you're a fan, you're a super fan.
I mean,
It's
you
been a
guys
lifelong
are
passion of mine, yeah.
rabid.
Yeah,
Do you own the stock?
I do actually.
You do. Does that conform to Jim O'Shaughnessy's models, or you just?
It's
You're stepping out on me, aren't
high
you?
shareholder yield, low. And I actually personally invested in a private wrestling promotion, a smaller one.
Okay,
Awesome.
good for you. Well, listen,
Good.
This is amazing.
Very nice,
We,
Phil. Thank you.
We
Yeah,
absolutely
thank
love
you.
it.
Have fun with that.
Thank
Give it to
you.
your
Duncan,
kids.
who's your wrestler? You have one?
I mean, I would probably go back to when I was a kid, Hulk Hogan or something.
Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
Wait, you were a kid I was Hulk Hogan as a kid. You're not my age.
I just remember playing with the action figure, but I was
Okay.
never super into it in general.
So my guy was Nikolai Volkov, and he would come out and
You
sing.
strike me as a Nikolai Volkov guy.
So he would sing the Russian national anthem, and the crowd.
And you would stand up
The
at
crowd
attention.
would like throw garbage cans at him. This is the 80s.
Yeah.
There was like
Right.
not even
wrestlers
security.
got like the heels in the 80s. Like people took that seriously. They never broke character. Like they got stabbed
The
on the
Iron
way to the
Sheik.
ring.
Yeah, yeah.
It was
The
like
Iron
crazy
Sheik.
stuff. Yeah.
Crazy.
Well,
That
the
guy's
Iron
sick.
Sheik and Nikolai Volkov were tag team partners. That I remember. And they would fight two guys with like American flag Speedos, of course.
Oh, yeah.
And it never really went well for them. Thanksgiving's coming up. I wanted to ask you guys what you do for Thanksgiving. What are your traditions?
I'll go first. So our tradition more the last like decade, like since I got married, is just with my wife's family, going to see them because
Smart.
it's a smaller family. My family's pretty big, extended wise.
Happy wife, happy life.
It's
Smart
more
man.
it's more noticeable if we're not there for hers. So we're going down to Naples actually next week to visit
Sounds
them.
terrible.
I know, right? As far as foods, I'm a big fan of the corn souffle. That's kind of the Huber family specialty.
Will you tell us about the allocator's edge?
I will.
I just realized we spent an hour talking and we haven't gotten to the fact that your new book is out.
Yeah, we'll plug
Thank
that
you.
for
I
sure.
got a copy.
Wait, hold
too.
on.
I
Let's
so
make sure
Jim-
this gets on camera.
There we go.
So tell us why the book, why now, and what you're most excited about people reading in here.
Yeah, so I'm super excited and proud of how it turned out. The inspiration for writing this particular book was based on a lot of the conversations I had been having in our firm with advisors, with clients on, we have dedicated allocations to different types of alternative investments, and it accounts for most of the questions that the clients have.
The alternatives account
They
for
do,
most
yeah,
of the questions.
and naturally, that should be unexpected because they're more complex, they're a little bit more foreign to most people, that they don't have experience owning them, so they don't know how to properly set expectations. So my whole goal here was to really create the manual for financial advisors and other professional allocators on the why, the how, and the what behind investing in alternative investments.
I like what you did, where you kind of took what is that called, the periodic table?
Yeah.
So every type of investment has its own periodic table symbol.
Mm-hmm.
So like equity market neutral is MN. And then you explain what it's for, diversification and growth. I would argue with the growth part, but I see what you mean. But there are so many categories of alternatives. How many do you get into?
So the whole middle part of the book is the what. So I tried to take a past, present, future framework for going through chapter by chapter. So I kind of start with the 4 big horsemen of alts: private equity, hedge funds, real estate, natural resources, and then move into some other categories that are becoming more popular today. Things like insurance-linked securities, like cat bonds, things like
Bored apes.
all different types of private credit, digital assets, et cetera. So I tried to make it as comprehensive as possible because it is a pretty big topic. And the word alternatives, it really just tells you more about what something isn't as opposed to what it is. So to lump everything together in one category, I think is a disservice. But what do you?
Well, I read the book, and if I could quote myself, I wrote.
Notice that he's got to read it, though.
It unpacks the misunderstandings. Hold on. It unpacks the misunderstandings and misconceptions that often accompany alternative investments.
Well done, Funkhauser.
Well done. Well done. Well
Dude,
played.
I'm very proud of you, and you have like all the best people
Cliff
on the back
Asness wrote
cover.
the forward.
Oh, I mean, it was a true wish list of the people that provided endorsements, including Michael.
So let me read these. Corey Hofstein, who is brilliant. Meb Faber, who is brilliant. Shannon Sakosha, she's like a great CIO at Boston Private.
Yeah,
is her firm. Who else on here? Ted Seides, who great podcast, capital allocators.
And it wasn't just the like people like Brian Portnoy, like Ted, like
Did
Corey.
he ask you?
He did not.
They were so.
after this
Cliff
is over.
Asness wrote the forward.
So I am powerful at OSAM only until 12/31 when the deal actually closes. So I'm going to use my power in a very reckless way.
Okay.
Because I was not asked, I'm cutting his entire firm off.
Yeah, Cliff did an amazing job with
And
the
you
forward.
how did you get Cliff?
I emailed him and I asked him. I've known Cliff. We're not close friends, but I emailed him and a lot of my
He does nice things for people.
So
people only know like one side of him, but he does nice things.
And I attribute a lot of my early education around alternatives early in my career
AQR.
came from attending AQR University, their conference they did for advisors. And so for me, it was kind of full circle where if I'm writing a book on alternatives, if I could pick one person in the world to do the forward, it was Cliff. And I told him that, and he was kind enough to do it and did a phenomenal job. So, very
You know what
much.
would have been funny if you called him like 2 weeks before the book came out and said, "Yeah, that forward that you wrote, we decided it really wasn't that good.
Well,
so we're not going to use it."
I sent it to my editor, Craig, and we were both like, I don't think there's a single word to edit of this because it was just classic Cliff, footnotes, all
I
that
dare you to
stuff.
edit. I dare you to
I
edit.
dare you. I dare you too.